The wind is crawling over the empty fields. The old farmhouse is groaning like it has secrets, and somewhere in the kitchen, Muriel is smiling. But her shadow is moving the wrong way. Night settles over the middle of nowhere like a heavy blanket, and the sky turns the color of bruised plums. The wind slides under the door and rattles the windows, and the clock in the hallway ticks as if it has teeth. Our camera drifts toward the farmhouse, slow and careful, as if even the lens is scared to get closer. Inside, the kitchen light flickers, a pale yellow glow cutting a thin line across the floor. On the table sits a steaming pot, the kind of warm, loving soup only Muriel can make. But tonight the smell carries something else with it, something old, like the scent of a long-closed cellar. Courage peeks from behind the chair, ears stretched tall, paws pressed to his chest. He wants to bark, but only a small squeak escapes. He lifts his eyes to Muriel, who hums a sweet little tune while stirring the pot. It would be cozy if her reflection in the window were humming too. It isn't, it is still. It is watching. A cloud passes over the moon and the house darkens. The floorboards shift, as if someone heavy has stepped onto them, but no one is there. Courage tiptoes to the door, nose twitching. He hears a faint scratch on the porch, then 3 slow taps on the wood, spaced out like a heartbeat. He gasps and looks at Muriel. She does not turn. She adds a pinch of salt and tilts her head as if listening to a whisper that no one else can hear. The old radio crackles to life by itself, and a ghostly waltz begins, thin and silver, floating through the room. Courage backs away, bumping into a chair. It squeals across the floor, loud and sharp. The humming stops. Muriel turns, smiling, gentle as always, but her eyes seem deeper tonight, like little wells lit by faraway candles. "Oh, my dear," she says, without words, only with that look that always calms him. Courage wants to smile back, but something cold brushes his neck like a shadow with fingers. He spins. The hallway is empty, but the coats on the stand sway on their own. Somewhere above, a bat clicks its tongue. The door latch slides. A rush of wind bursts through the crack and snuffs the kitchen flame. In the dark, the soup burbles once, as if something in it is trying to speak. A thin, tall silhouette rises on the other side of the frosted glass, longer than a man but lighter than smoke. Courage dives under the table and clamps his paws over his mouth to keep in the scream. The figure doesn't knock. It only waits quiet, patient like a guest who knows he's already invited. The clock hands twitch backward and then forward again. The radio music slows, stretching like a rubber band, then snaps back to speed with a wobble. Muriel relights the stove with a steady hand. She seems calm, too calm, and that calmness is the scariest part. The light blooms again, and her shadow leans long across the floorboards. It reaches toward the door before she does, fingers spidery, curious. Hungry. Courage crawls out and tugs on her skirt, eyes wet and wide. He points at the door, then at his own neck, then makes a tiny bite gesture, little teeth clacking. Muriel pats his head and laughs without sound, as if a warm memory has tickled her. But her breath fogs the air, thicker than it should in a room this warm. The handle trembles once, twice. The third time it turns, slow and smooth, and the door yawns open. Night pours in like ink. The silhouette is gone, but the cold remains, sliding across the floor, climbing up the table legs, curling around Courage's ankles. He yelps and leaps into a cupboard. Pots clatter, lids ring like dull bells, the room sings with metal. The radio skips. The music comes back whispering behind the walls. As if it has learned the layout of the house and is walking through it, the kitchen window shows the yard, a scarecrow bending the wrong way. The old water pump creaking with no one at it, and far at the fence line, 2 pale dots like distant stars, eyes, watching. The steam from the pot draws a small spiral, then a larger one, then a shape like a fang. Courage shakes his head. It must be the heat. It must be his fear. He tells himself stories to make sense of the moving dark, but the dark is telling its own story tonight. The staircase groans, step by step, like feet are coming down from a room that does not exist. Courage tiptoes to the hall and peers up. Only the old quilt at the top rail, dancing slowly as if a draft has found it. He turns back. Muriel lifts the spoon to taste her soup. Her wrist stops mid-air. For a heartbeat, the spoon does not reflect her face. It reflects the night. A clap of thunder rolls across the fields. The bulb above the table blinks a nervous Morse code. Courage spots a line of garlic hanging by the pantry and scrambles for it, tangling himself in the string until he looks like a tiny, worried wreath. He waddles back to Muriel, puffing, proud and scared at once. She smiles again, tender and kind, and for a moment the kitchen is normal. The pot sings a gentle bubble. The radio softens into a lullaby. The wind decides to rest. And then, outside, something opens a gate that has never had a latch. A soft drag across gravel, a cloak whispering, a heel that never touches the ground. Courage freezes. His ears fold. His heart bounces like a ball in a tin pail. He looks at Muriel, who sets down the spoon and walks to the door as if in a dream. She does not hurry. She does not fear. The door is wide, the night is deep, and the threshold is thin as a thread stretched between two teeth. She steps to the edge. The porch light blooms. It seems to draw the moon closer, pulling a face out of the dark, long and elegant and pale as old paper. We do not see it clearly. Our camera dips, catching only the hem of a shadow, the sweep of a sleeve, a silver glint like a smile where no mouth should be. Courage lunges and grabs her slipper, sliding across the floor with her, squeaking like a tiny violin. She stops. The night leans in as if to speak. The radio behind them hisses and the waltz becomes a heartbeat again 1-2. 1-2, 1-2 until the beat is all you can hear. Muriel blinks. The pale dots at the fence rise higher, as if they have found legs. Then, as gently as a lullaby ending, the wind closes the door. The latch settles. The house sighs. Muriel looks down at Courage as if waking up from a nap in a sunny chair. She strokes his head and returns to the stove as calm as ever. But the shadow at her heels is not the same size as it was. It lags behind by half a second, as if it must remember each move before it copies her. Courage stares. The garlic slips from his shoulders and lands with a soft thud. Outside, the porch boards remember a weight that is now gone. Inside, the room remembers a guest that did not have to cross the threshold to enter. The soup bubbles. The spoon waits. The radio hums a tune that once belonged to a grand hall with tall windows and candles that never went out. And in the glow, Muriel's smile is sweet. But the air around it tastes like the night has left a note. We are only getting started. Asterisk, the night deepens. And the farmhouse seems smaller than before, like the walls have taken a quiet step closer. Courage tiptoes through the hallway, paws trembling, the floorboards crying out with every creak. His nose twitches, sniffing the air. There's something sour hiding beneath Muriel's sweet soup, something like damp stone and rust. He pauses, ears pricked, when the radio begins again, not a song this time, but a faint voice. It murmurs in a language no one knows, syllables dripping like candle wax, low and sticky. Courage shivers and backs up against the wall. He glances toward Muriel, who hums gently, her spoon swirling in circles. But her shadow stretches too far across the tiles, curling over the cupboards and up the ceiling. Longer and darker than the glow of the lamp should allow Dot, then it happens her hand stops mid-stir. She lifts her head slowly. Her eyes glint, reflecting a light that isn't in the room. For a split second, her pupils narrow to thin, sharp slits. Courage gasps and dives behind the counter, his teeth clattering against each other. He peeks out once more. Muriel smiles, warm as ever, but her lips are too pale, and when she exhales, her breath rolls like fog spreading across the kitchen floor. The dog whimpers. He can't decide if he should bark or faint. The scratching returns at the door. A long, deliberate scrape, like nails across wood. Courage yelps and skitters backward. The handle shakes, turning halfway before stopping. He rushes to Eustace's armchair and tugs at his sleeve. Eustace grumbles, half asleep, pulling his hat lower over his eyes. Courage waves his arms, pantomiming fangs, pointing at the door, shivering like a leaf in a storm. Eustace cracks one eye open, glares, and growls the words Courage always dreads. "Stupid dog! You made me look bad?" He swats him away and snores again. Courage sinks, ears drooping, a little ball of fear with no backup. The house groans as if answering him. The window above the sink rattles. Courage turns. Through the thin glass he sees it, the figure. Tall, impossibly tall, stretching as if stitched from the night itself. Cloaked in black, with only a hint of pale skin under the hood. The figure does not blink, does not sway. It only waits, pressed against the window, though no footsteps were heard. Two eyes burn faintly, not red, not yellow, something older, like faded silver. Courage screeches silently, his mouth wide but no sound escaping, just a puff of terrified air. He ducks, hides beneath the table, clutches his cheeks. Muriel tilts her head, as though listening to someone whisper in her ear. She sets the spoon aside and lifts the pot lid. Steam swirls upward, shaping into twisting. Bat-like forms before fading. She breathes it in deeply, sighs, and hums again, only this time the tune is different. Not her soft lullaby. It's low, haunting, the kind of melody that belongs in a place with velvet curtains and chandeliers dripping with wax. Courage stares at her, eyes bulging as the humming grows stronger, echoing through the halls as though a chorus is joining in. The kitchen light flickers, then steadies. For a moment, Muriel's reflection in the window is not her. The reflection bears fangs, glaring straight at Courage's hiding spot. He shrieks and bolts, skidding across the floor, scrambling into the attic door. He slams it shut behind him, panting hard. Dust swirls, cobwebs cling to his ears. He flicks on a flashlight with trembling paws. The beam lands on old trunks, cracked mirrors, and a rocking horse swaying by itself. His stomach twists when the beam falls on a coffin small, child-sized, and trembling as if something inside is scratching to be free. Courage stumbles backward, dropping the flashlight. The light spins across the floor. Flashing shadows that leap across the rafters like monsters dancing, the scratching grows louder, then stops. Silence. Courage holds his breath. A hinge squeals, slow, cruel. The coffin lid creeps open. But instead of a monster, a bat shoots out, flapping madly, bouncing against the beams before rushing out the attic window. Courage collapses in a heap, clutching his chest, his scream echoing like a tiny trumpet. Then from below he hears Muriel's voice, only not quite hers. Deeper, stretched thin, like someone speaking through her mouth. "Come in," it says softly. "Come in, my guest." Courage freezes. He scrambles to the attic window and peeks down. The front door is open and the figure finally enters, gliding without sound. Its cloak drips along the floor like spilled ink. Muriel stands waiting, her face blank, her hands folded neatly as though expecting a friend. The vampire bows. His movement is slow and smooth, as if the air itself parts for him. Courage's knees knock together. He knows he has to do something. But what can a little dog do against the night itself? He gnaws on his paw, panicking, while below the vampire's pale hand reaches toward Muriel. And the clock downstairs strikes once louder than thunder. Louder than anything Courage has ever heard. The farmhouse is no longer just a house. It has become a stage, and the first act of the nightmare has only begun. The air in the farmhouse feels heavy now, like every breath Courage takes is borrowed. Muriel moves strangely, her steps slow but weightless, as if strings pull her from above. She hums that eerie tune again, her voice lower than it should be, and when she laughs, it echoes with someone else's tone. Courage tiptoes after her, clutching a garlic bulb like a shield. The vampire lingers in the shadows, tall and silent, his eyes following Courage with patient hunger. Determined to uncover the truth, Courage sneaks into the attic once more. His flashlight beam catches portraits on the wall, Muriel's smiling face. But in each frame, her smile grows sharper, her teeth a little too long. Courage trembles, squeaks, and keeps moving. At the far end, he finds a diary, dusty, bound in leather, whispering when he opens it. The words inside shift and crawl across the page. The one who cooks with love will be chosen. The feast begins at midnight. Courage gulps. Midnight is only minutes away. The clock in the hallway groans and strikes 12, each chime rolling through the house like a hammer. The kitchen windows rattle, the light flickers, and the vampire steps fully into the room at last. His cloak drags like spilled ink, his shoes never touching the floor. Muriel stands in place, her eyes glassy, lips curved in a smile that doesn't belong to her. Courage crouches low, paws shaking, clutching a string of garlic like it's a lifeline. He knows this is it. If he doesn't act now, Muriel may never come back. The vampire raises a pale hand toward her, fingers long, shadows stretching over the stove. Muriel leans forward, swaying gently as if under a spell. Courage squeals, rushes forward, and leaps between them, arms spread wide. His little body shakes, but his eyes burn with something rare bravery. The vampire tilts his head, amused, not angry. He steps closer. Courage thrusts the garlic into the air, waving it wildly. The vampire pauses, blinking, then sneezes an enormous, echoing sneeze that rattles the pots on the shelf. For a moment, the spell breaks. Muriel blinks, rubbing her eyes, dazed, but the vampire isn't finished. He hisses, and the windows blow open, filling the room with a storm of bats. Courage yelps, dashes in circles, and crashes into a cupboard, sending dishes clattering everywhere. The noise startles the bats, scattering them against the ceiling until they vanish through the chimney. Courage, now buried under a pile of pans, pokes his head out, dizzy but determined. He spots the vampire bending toward Muriel again, thinking fast. Courage grabs a wooden rolling pin, pretending it's a stake. He charges with a squeak, eyes shut tight, and trips over his own feet. He tumbles forward, rolling straight into the vampire's cloak. The fabric tangles around the vampire's legs, and with a shocked grunt, he stumbles backward right into Muriel's hot pot of soup. The pot tips, spilling steaming broth across the floor. The smell of onions, garlic, and love fills the air. The vampire freezes, nostrils flaring. He isn't angry, he's delighted. With a strange, regal bawl, the vampire scoops up a spoonful, sips, and sighs with satisfaction. His glowing eyes soften. He wasn't here to curse Muriel or to drain her life, he came for her cooking. Delicious, his deep voice murmurs like a cave echo. He wipes his lips, tips his hat to Courage, and sweeps out through the window, vanishing into the night. The kitchen falls silent again. Muriel yawns as if waking from a nap, completely unaware of what just happened. She pats Courage's head, smiling kindly, and goes back to tidying the kitchen. Eustace snorts in his chair, grumbling, "Noisy mutt," before dozing off again. Courage sighs, his little body deflating in relief. He glances at the garlic on the floor, the spilled soup, and the empty window. For a moment, he wonders if it's over. Outside, a soft laugh drifts on the wind, fading into the fields. The vampire is gone for now. Courage hugs Muriel's slipper, eyes half shut, heart still pounding. Another night of terror has passed, another mystery survived. The farmhouse creaks, the shadows stretch back into their corners, and Courage, the cowardly dog, breathes out one last squeak of relief.